Welcome, everyone, to another fantastic episode of Elbows Tight Podcast. It's your host, Travis and John. See, now the intro, that sounds right. John, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. This is actually the intro. It's not the actual interview. We've successfully transitioned into the intro being the actual intro.
It's nice.
Fun fact. Fun fact. If you guys didn't know that, I don't think anyone really cares. But, John, who do we have on the podcast today?
We have Jim. And what was the last name?
Trick.
That's right. Jim Trick. He has a really good podcast. You're going to hear all about it when you listen to ours. I highly recommend you go listen to his as well.
Yeah, Jim Trick, he is the runner. Well, I guess runner's kind of weird to say, but he runs the MyWhiteBelt Instagram page, MyWhiteBelt podcast, MyWhiteBelt.com. He is a former big guy turned purple belt, and then he's a little bit of an older gentleman, so his perspective on jiu-jitsu is really good, and he was honestly it was probably the most organic conversation we've had in the podcast in a long time. I don't even think we really asked. It was such an organic conversation. You guys will hear. We were asking questions back and forth. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't just us asking questions. Jim's were asking questions too, which was really nice as well. So
he's a very good speaker.
Yeah. Come to find out, he's a motivational speaker for his full-time job and business, or in like a life coach. So if you guys are interested in that, hit him up. Maybe he can help you out. So, but other than that, hopefully you guys enjoyed the episode. John, what was your beverage of the day?
I had a I don't know how to say that. Lagunitas IPA.
Lagunitas.
Yeah, what he said. IPA. It was fantastic. What'd you have?
I had, bro. Don't even get me started. I had the delicious Truly's lemonade hard seltzer.
I can't believe you put yourself on camera drinking that.
Why you hating? These things are delicious.
Horrible.
No. If you guys haven't tried the Truly's, they're in the black can. If you're not watching, they're the black can Truly's. Literally the best hard seltzer. It doesn't taste like a White Claw, like John always talks about. I'm not getting white girl wasted here, but these only have 100 calories, so they're pretty freaking nice, and they get you drunk if that's something you're concerned about. Not me so much.
Well, this one only has 5 calories. So if you guys can see that.
Whatever. Really, are you sure that's not 5% alcohol?
I really don't know if it has 5 or not. I made that
up. So thank you guys so much for listening at home. Hopefully you enjoy. Don't forget to follow us everywhere. Elbows Tight Pod everywhere. Elbows Tight Podcast and Elbows Tight. And then I think that's pretty much it.
That's it.
Everything will be down in the description below if you want to follow Jim. Thanks, guys, so much for listening and watching. Catch you later. Peace.
Support for Elbows Tight is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped recently launched the Ultimate Men's Hygiene Bundle, the Performance Package. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code ETP20 at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that's about 8 million balls.
That's a lot of balls, Johnny. When Manscaped reached out to work with us, I instantly thought, yes, what a deal. I've been using Manscaped products for a while now, and when they mentioned helping out with the podcast, I thought it was a no-brainer. I have the Lawnmower 4.0 now, but I had the Lawnmower 3.0 and absolutely loved it. Also, most people think about Manscaped as just trimmers, but really they have ball deodorant, ball toner, the Weed Whacker, which is your favorite thing, right, John?
Yeah, I love the Weed Whacker. Look, I'm about to hit like 45 years old, so I got hair growing out of everywhere now. So it's coming out my ears. I'm like, man, where is that Weed Whacker? It's definitely my favorite.
Get 20% off and free shipping with the code ETP20 at Manscaped. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code ETP20. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools to get the job done with Manscaped. Watching the countdown, and you're like, "Oh, don't say anything." Don't say. Jim, how's it going today, man? How you doing?
Good. We're not actually recording this today, are we? Like this, we're doing this like next week. Oh wait, we're actually doing this now.
Yeah, like right now.
Oh,
yeah,
this is awful.
Do you want me to restart? I can restart.
No, I'm totally kidding. I'm just
I was like, I mean, I could just talk for a while. We can do this.
I thought we were doing this next week. I thought we were just getting to know. I thought I was calling for my trial class. I didn't know we were actually going to roll. Oh my gosh, I would have.
This is literally just us getting to know each other. That way, when we actually record the podcast next week, it's even better for both of us,
now I feel better. Good. Now for the time that we spend, I'll share openly, knowing that no one's going to actually hear this.
No one's going to hear this.
Perfect.
John, how you doing today, man?
I'm glad it's Friday. The work week is over, so that's always a good thing.
It is. It is always a good thing. I'm still on baby leave, so
I'm jealous.
I mean, I'll trade you spots. You can come over with the kids.
Thanks for sending me the pictures of your abdomen. I'm amazed at how your stretch marks are healing this quickly. You have done really well.
You know what? It's a lot of Kegels. So it's like...
You're a beautiful woman.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. So, hey, if you guys haven't guessed, if you're listening or watching this, Jim Trick is our guest today. Jim, go ahead and let's go into who you are and a little bit about yourself. If for those who don't know the magnificent Jim that is you.
I'm a guy who hangs out online and then does chat rooms with fellas who do jiu-jitsu. That's the ABC. That's the ABCs of me. I run a platform called MyWhiteBelt, which is about encouraging people who are terrified about trying jiu-jitsu, encouraging them to try it, and for people who are in their first year and are really ready to give up, trying to get them to stay. So because jiu-jitsu's had a profound impact on my life, and I think that's how the three of us know each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's been going. It's funny. I started the Instagram account, the @MyWhiteBelt Instagram account, probably like 3 years ago. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was a white belt at the time, and I was just documenting my thoughts and experience with jiu-jitsu. And then a few months ago, I had two things happen. One is I ran into John Danaher in a restaurant, and I'm happy to talk about that as much or as little as you're curious. And then a couple days later, I posted a picture of a 73-year-old guy from our academy getting his blue belt. And those posts just blew up. They went crazy. And what I realized was, for everything that we have in the social media realm for BJJ, we really didn't have anybody speaking directly into the hearts and minds of scared people and new people. And so that's just where I have found my rhythm. And it's crazy. I love it. And I'm as shocked as anybody that it seems to be turning into something that means something.
It's funny you mentioned that, because John and I felt the same way when we started jiu-jitsu. We started this podcast actually 3 years ago today. Today is our 3-year anniversary of doing this podcast.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. Cheers to that, right? And the reason we started is because of the same thing. We didn't feel like there was really any representation out there of someone going through the trenches of the daily struggles as a brand new person, understanding what's going on. Is this normal to feel this way? Why can't I get out of Neon Belly? You know what I mean? Like, we couldn't find these things out there. And so John and I were like, bro, we should just start a podcast. And, our first 15 episodes are really just us interviewing all of our friends that were white belts with us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we're all just a bunch of white belts talking about being white belts. And slowly from there, we started reaching out to more people that have a little bit more experience, because we realized there's still value in people, even though they're black belts and they're kind of not out of touch, but they're far removed from being a white belt in those struggles. They have their own struggles, but there's a lot of value there too, talking to them about hey, is this normal? Did you feel this way? Kind of.
Isn't it incredible how consistent it is, the things that people feel and experience just across the board? And because jiu-jitsu is growing at such an incredible clip, you have fresh, new people every day who are asking the same questions.
Yep.
And I don't know, for some reason, I think it's because, and you probably, my guess is that you feel the same, is that because our experience with jiu-jitsu has been so profound, I don't have any problem answering the same questions over and over again. And I feel like my answers get better the more times I get to answer them.
Right.
Agreed.
more polished.
I think so. Yeah.
And John and I were talking about that too. And when for a while, we were kind of felt like we were running out of questions to ask people because we didn't want to keep it fresh for our listeners.
Yeah.
But then we kind of realized, like, well, everyone is going to have a different take on this question. You know what I mean? Everyone's going to have a different perspective on, what was your struggles as a white belt? Like, how did you start training? Like, things like that. So once again, going back to, interviewing black belts, stuff like that. And there still is a lot of value in they have so much experience, you know what I mean? And one of our interviews with James O'Connor, he talked about how, just because he's a black belt, a third-degree black belt, he's been doing it for 20 years, doesn't mean he wakes up every morning and wants to train. And I was like, that's a really good point. Like the guy's been doing it for, almost as long as I've been alive. And he's been doing martial arts for 30 years and he still wakes up and he's like, I don't really want to go today.
In my attempt to be super encouraging, I'm not sure that I'm always super honest. I think I'm honest about important things, but yeah, to be able to say like, we love it. And there are some days that I wake up busted up and I just don't. I took Tuesday morning off. I try to train 6 days a week right now, which is probably a little dumb for somebody my age. But yeah, I think that two things are true. A, I love talking to black belts who still seem to have some kind of a connection to their early days. And there are some days where I've just have had enough of all of it. Just mostly because of the toll that it takes, because I'm not as young as you gentlemen.
When I listened to one of your podcasts this morning, and you said that on there 6 times a week, I was like, 6 times a week? I'm struggling to do 2 right now.
Yeah,
3 is like phenomenal. And
so what's your academy like? Are you guys like a competition school? Like, do you have a lot of guys that are going and?
We do have a core group that seems to go compete, but we've had a lot of turnover at our school, so I wouldn't say we're definitely not like a competitive.
And we're still really small. Like we only offer classes like advanced. We just recently added 3 classes of beginners, 2 days or 2 nights a week beginners, and then a Saturday no-gi. But for years it was Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1 time a day for one class. You know
Remind
what I mean?
me of your ranks. Where are you guys at? What level are you guys
Blue
at?
belts.
Yeah, we're both blue belts. Yeah.
So we train. We have class Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. And for that group, they say first Jiu-Jitsu, then the world. And then we have Monday through Thursday, 7 p.m. And so I train every morning, except occasionally I just have to take a morning off if I just haven't had a good night's sleep or I just know I'm pushing it. And then I teach our beginner program Monday, Tuesday nights. And then there are some open mats. And so there's a lot of jiu-jitsu. And I've really just had to create a cycle where I'll show up, I'll warm up, I'll drill, and then there are some days that I will just look at whoever I'm rolling with and just go, I'm happy to be your grappling dummy today. I just don't have any interest in I don't have anything to prove. So I train 6 days a week, and I try to train in a way that is sustainable because I want to be able to keep doing it. And I'm single, and I don't have kids, so it's like, what am I doing?
That is fantastic. Well, that's something I take into account now when people ask me about trying out jiu-jitsu. Like, things I didn't know when I started were how important a schedule is and what classes are offered. Mm-hmm. And, typically at our place, it really is only 2 days a week where they offer class. You can go on a weekend, so you could make it 3. And, now that I know, I was like, man, I wish we had 7 days a week because then I could get in more. And, if you're like us and you got to get up at 4 a.m. and go to work, making that 6:30 class at night, you're already exhausted.
Oh,
so, you just got to take that stuff in. And really, that's the only time we have for adult classes, 6 p.m.
When we were on pandemic shutdown, we had to train in pods, and I got stuck in pod 2. And there really weren't many people who were training in pod 2. And it meant training at night, which I didn't like at all. Yeah. And I went to my coach and I said, hey, man, I didn't say, hey, man. I said, hey, I really don't.
Listen, bro.
Hey, broski. I I told him that I didn't really like training at night because I had a hard time getting to sleep. And I don't want to mischaracterize him. Like, this isn't really how he is most of the time, but he basically was like, I can't believe you said that to me. He goes, you are now only allowed to train at night because this is a martial art, and you don't go to your coach and say, I don't want to train at night because I'm going to be too sleepy or I'm not going to be able to do it. So I think it's the lesson for me, and all of it has just been to like really manage how how I'm going to show up in class, because there's just no way. Can I say balls out on this podcast?
Yeah,
there's
sure.
no way that I can go balls out 6 days a week. I will often go, like, I'll go 1 week where I go really hard a lot, but most of the time it's like maybe 1 or 2 hard rolls and then kind of just go flowy and try to do it in a way that allows me to keep going.
Well, let's digress a little bit and kind of go into how you got into jiu-jitsu, because you have a very interesting story. Also, we just interviewed Philip. What's his last name?
Oh, way to make me try to remember that.
Man, I forgot. But Jiu-Jitsu Phil, you featured him on your page for used to be a big guy and now he's a purple belt also.
Oh yeah.
Or Ben Phelps, that's his name. Sorry. So what got you into jiu-jitsu? Tell us a little bit of story about how you got into jiu-jitsu.
So the things that I love as an adult are all the things that I loved as a kid. I loved guitars. I was obsessed with guitars. I loved fishing. And I'm an avid fly fisherman. And I loved karate. Like, in our town, there was a store called the Striking Fist Martial Arts Supplies. And after guitar lessons, my parents would drop me off at this little store that sold gis and padded nunchucks and sais and ninja books and Tiger Balm. And we're talking like the 70s, And this guy, Dennis, was there. And I would he'd be like, oh, okay, you can hang out if you want. It's a store. You can hang out here. And I would literally just go and hang out at the Striking Fist. And I had a ninja poster. And before my parents could afford to get me karate lessons, they bought me a gi. And so I just grew up loving martial arts, and every password, every online password that I have has some kind of martial arts based word in it. It's I love Aikido at 4928. And so I loved this. I loved karate, and I think part of it was just so you guys know right out of the gate, I can talk like nobody's business. So at any point in time, if you want to hit pause on me and get a word in edgewise, just I don't know.
Don't worry, we'll do the Oscars and be like, all right, let's go ahead and wrap that answer up.
That's amazing. Now, 10 seconds into every answer, I'm going to get that. Okay, that was great with Jim so-and-so from such and such. Get the hell out of here. I was bullied really, really badly in middle school. And I think I had it in my mind that loving karate was enough to protect me from getting my ass beat. Oh, it wasn't, but... So I just had this fantasy around karate. And then finally I was able to get some karate lessons, and I did Kempo. I did Kempo for years. And sort of while I was dealing with getting bullied, and my dad got sick at a young age, and I developed an eating disorder that I like to say, a bag of chips will never let you down. And my way of dealing with my troubled childhood was to eat a lot of food, and I eventually became morbidly obese. I was 430 pounds at my all-time heaviest. At one point in time in my early 30s, I tried to revisit karate, American Kempo karate, with all of the ites and kiais and katas and so on and so forth. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I actually had to have a gi custom made.
Wow.
So I couldn't even find a gi that would fit me. So, there's a whole long story about the weight loss, and in my non-jiu-jitsu life, I work as a motivational speaker, and I have a coaching practice where I help people sort of find out what they want to do and who they want to be, and we work to get them to that place. But as it relates to jiu-jitsu, around, I guess, maybe 10 years ago or so, the guy who is my professor now, his name is Liam McGowan. 9 or 10 years ago, he was a brown belt, and he invited chubby me to a class at his jiu-jitsu school that he attended and taught some beginner classes at. He said, "Oh, you've done karate your whole life. You're going to love this. It's going to be great, blah, 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 blah." And I went and I did this class, and I was like, what the hell is this? What is this? This guy, the entire class was a student black belt. I described it as this. He was sitting on my chest for an hour and a half. And basically, he was going from mount to S mount to a basic arm bar. But I didn't know anything, and I hadn't experienced anything. And in that moment, I realized that all of the theoretical martial arts that I had done as a kid and a little bit as a young adult, I might as well have been doing dancing lessons. And I'm not here to offend any of your listeners that are really into Kempo karate, but after taking one jiu-jitsu class 9 years ago, I realized that if I was going to ever train martial arts again, first of all, it was going to require a really solid commitment. And number two, it was going to be Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So over the course of that 9 years, I went through an epiphany and transformed my body and the way that I thought about life and saw myself, lost a bunch of weight. All the while, Liam was, working towards his black belt and dreaming about opening a school. And he was my friend, and we would get coffee. And every once in a while, I'd say, "Yeah, I'd love to open a school." And then eventually, a little over 4 years ago, he said, "Hey, I'm opening a school. It's going to be called First Colony, and we're having an open house." And I was like, "I will be there." And I went to the open house and I signed up. And my first 6 months were frigging hell. Awful. I was, for a million reasons. But I stuck with it. And I have to tell you that for a guy who used to weigh 430 pounds, to be able to say that I've stuck it through, I just earned my purple belt recently. I train 6 days a week. I teach beginners. It's changed my life. And that's a lot of me talking. So that's kind of like the ABCs of how I got to this. And I just want to in the name of full disclosure, I am not great at jiu-jitsu. I'm not great. I'm mediocre at best. I have some things that I'm good at, but even though I'm not going to win Naga or Worlds, I just love it. I just love it so much.
Starting that new school, was it like a lot of new practitioners, or did you guys have a lot of colored belts just opening it up right away?
Yeah, so there were a bunch of purple belts and blue belts and no quote unquote beginner program. So the white belts that were there, and it was a pretty small school at first, maybe 8 or 10 guys. The initial, and none of them were jerks, but they were there to train. And our mindset is people roll right out of the gate. Now that we're a bigger school, people still roll right out of the gate, but it's after they've learned to break, fall, shrimp, bridge, and they will situational roll from close guard. But we want them to have the experience of rolling right from the beginning. Do you guys do that, or do you make?
I was going to say that's very close to how we started, real close. I mean, we started rolling right out the gate. It was but we were all brand new white belts, except for we had one guy that had a stripe on his white belt, so he was basically God.
And Cody, our gym owner, Cody, our gym owner, just had got his purple belt too. And then the guy the first guy we were under was like, "Yeah, all right, you'll be under me. Enjoy your school." And we never saw him again. Then we switched black belts that we were under, but we've gone through 3 different black belts in our school. Our school is under, and Cody's finally a brown belt, but it's been a crazy journey for us because we've been doing jiu-jitsu as long as the school's been open.
How long is that?
Oh,
It's got to be
4 years.
Yeah, 4 years.
I think
now.
this is the fourth year. So it's been a crazy journey, and it's funny you mentioned all that stuff about your first 6 months being hell because, man, even though Cody was a purple belt, he could have easily have been a coral belt to me. Like now,
totally.
Like, it was crazy to roll with him, and I was like, I'm dying. I'm just gonna die. Like not only like physically, but like I'm like exhausted, And I was in great shape, and it's like people were worried, like I'm not in good enough shape for jiu-jitsu. Like, I just want to let you know, it doesn't matter how good of shape you're in, what stage of life you are. The first 6 months of jiu-jitsu sucks. It is hard.
Do you have CrossFit
really,
guys
really
come in?
hard.
You ever have a CrossFit guy come in and train?
I was a CrossFit
Yeah,
coach.
we were both CrossFitting there.
Oh, isn't that funny? We have CrossFit guys who come in and they're ripped, and you just look
Does
at them.
not matter.
It doesn't matter. They come in 15 minutes into class. They are like literally gasping and sweating. It's a different thing. And the same, like when I look at, obviously, like I have just like so much love for Liam and respect, and he's my dear friend. But we have another guy who, when we started, he was a purple belt and had just got his brown belt right after we started, and he's about to get his black belt real soon.
Heck yeah!
And I'm just like thinking to myself, this is a guy who, like you said, might as well be a coral belt. I just admire him. I look up to him. I've tried to model myself after him. And we've had the same problem regarding changing lineage. I don't want to say anything about our old lineage, but we are now in the process of affiliating with Brazilian Top Team. And it's to be able to see my coach get to train under elite black belts.
Yeah.
It's so exciting. It's such a huge thing because I know it's going to make everybody better. And it's
Man,
also
it's
kind
so
of
funny
weird
you mentioned. It's funny you mentioned that because John and I talked about that too. Like, no offense to any black belt we ever rolled with, but there's obviously different levels of black belts. Like, if people that do it for a living are going to obviously be a higher skill level than if John and I were black belts. You know what I mean? And the first time we rolled with like a no BS like this dude's competed a long time in jiu-jitsu and like Nathan Orchard.
Yeah, it was amazing.
From 10th Planet. Dude, it was literally like every 10 seconds I was tapping to something. I didn't even know what I was tapping to. Like, it was just incredible to feel the amount of skill someone has at that level. You know what I mean?
Oh, I just did a private with Professor Daniel, who runs Brazilian Top Team for 3 Boston academies. And he's a 4-stripe black belt who is... I mean, at the end of our private, he said, "Do you want to roll?" And I said, "Sure, I want to roll." And of course, I'm like doing like a respectful roll where I'm not like going in and like I have nothing to prove. I'm certainly not trying to hammer a 4-stripe black belt. I kind of want to see it more as like an exchange of questions and answers. But just watching and feeling that guy move and knowing that no matter what I do, there's no world in which I'm going to get close to doing anything. And so it's almost like riding a ride at Disneyland. It's like, whoa, what just happened? You
didn't try to sneak a wrist lock in there? No, just
that would be a great idea. Do you guys train wrist locks?
No, John and I do wrist locks.
We don't. I mean, he shows them.
He'll show them. Like our professor will show him. Like
I love them.
Here goes an arm bar or like an omoplata. If you can't lock it in, like there's a wrist lock.
You love them.
So
I do.
Oh, we both
I
love
find
them.
it to be a great equalizer when I'm going up against somebody that's 20 years old and 6'2".
I do it with my kids. I don't even care.
200 pounds. Like as long as I hit it once, then they all of a sudden they slow down.
Yeah, that's okay.
You don't like wrist locks?
We're training them, and I get that they're part of jiu-jitsu, and sure, I'll do some wrist locks. But to me, it's like I file that under somebody who you're in their closed guard, or they're in your closed guard and they're digging their
elbows into your thighs.
Yeah,
I knew that's where he was going.
It's like I'm a fly fisherman. If I was really that concerned with catching a fish, I would probably get a worm and a bobber. But I like the beauty and the process of this other thing. And wrist locks are legal, and they're part of jiu-jitsu, and it's a thing, and I do them. But because I'm a guitarist, I just...
I
don't
bet.
know. This is an awful thing to say that I do this, but I will, depending on who I'm rolling with, I'll be like, hey, do me a favor, don't grapevine me, and don't wrist lock me.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that you want, and I'm not going to try to heel hook you. I'm not going to try to toe hold you. Like, these things are there, but the hierarchy of submissions, I want to be able to keep training. So I guess where I land on wrist locks is, sure, I have to know how to defend wrist locks, and I want to be able to apply wrist locks. And I don't think that they're ever going to be like core to my game.
Right.
Yeah, we definitely, John and I joke about enjoying wrist locks so much, but I mean, we honestly do, right? They're a lot of fun. But John Dana here talked about wrist locks, and he's like, they're a great move, real submission. But the problem he has with them is there's no setup to them. There's no, like, in order to do a scissor sweep, you are in closed guard. You know what I mean? Like, a wrist lock is just like a secondary submission from an already like submission kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's kind of like we just mentioned, like the omoplata. You could do a wrist lock from an omoplata, but you're going for the omoplata. You could do it from an Americana, but you're doing the Americana. There's like there's no preface for a wrist lock. It's kind of like a subsidiary move to something you were already trying.
Yeah, well said. I think it's true, and I think that and we literally, like, our Saturday morning class with our coach Frizz was a wrist lock class. He basically spent a big chunk of the class teaching wrist locks. And so I'm all about it. I'm just not psyched about it. And, I want to be able to play that guitar hanging on the wall behind me. I make part of my living doing that. So it's just like, I don't know. Do you find that there's like this balance between wanting to like really make sure that you're engaging the full spectrum of training and also like certain things that... Do you say no to anything? Do you tell anybody not to do anything? Do you guys heel hook?
No oil checks. Yeah, I don't want to finger my ass. But.
Yeah, exactly. I think our school you have to pay extra for that.
No, I think you're right. As far as wrist locks go, you do have to be careful with those. Because if you try to hit those all the time, I think it hurts your game because you're not trying anything else, and they're easier to get.
Yeah, they're super easy to get.
Yeah.
Not only that, but like a person, if a person doesn't know how to defend a wrist lock, it's kind of like a heel hook. They can hurt themselves really fast. You know what I mean? Like, you jerk the wrong way and like a wrist lock that's locked in there, and you're going to break your own wrist. You know what I mean? So,
do you guys train gi and no gi?
Mostly gi.
And do you have a leg program? Do you train leg locks, ashigarami?
Not really. No.
I think 50-50 was the last thing I remember going over with that dealt with anything like that.
Backside 50-50 or frontside 50-50? I
think it was front side.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. And I think when Nathan did a seminar at the class,
was that a skateboard joke, by the way?
No, actually. No, but backside, I guess backside 50-50
I was like, backside 50, I was
like a half pipe trick, isn't it?
Yeah. I was like, well, my nerdiness came out for skateboarding. I was like, is this a joke? We talked about skateboarding beforehand, but go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no, backside 50-50 is something that we're actually working on. So we train no-gi 2 days a week, and Thursday is leg day where we're doing like advanced ashigarami and like different, heel hooks and toe holds a little bit, and obviously straight ankle locks for everybody. And any of that, I guess the moral of that story is you've really got to be a good communicator with your training partner if you're going to use any of those more dangerous submissions. You've got to make eye contact. You've got to put them on slow, because if you get wrist locked bad, you're going to feel that for weeks. And if you get heel hooked, you could be done. I mean, that has the potential to do permanent damage. And so you got to train them, got to know them. It's part of the game. But man, oh man, you just got to be careful, which is why spazzy white belts need to relax, Yeah.
It's funny you mention that it's part of the game, because John and I talk about this quite a bit. And it's basically your first 6 months of white belts, first year of white belts, is basically you learning how to defend yourself against someone that's not trained in jiu-jitsu, right? After that, it's training jiu-jitsu against jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's interesting, isn't it? Do you ever feel like a brand new untrained white belt comes in and gives you a hard time?
all the time. Yeah. Especially if they're big and strong. Like, because you got to think sometimes that's such a niche training partner, I would say, because not everyone that comes in is a brand new, never done this before, right? And even after the first class, they're no longer brand new. Now they do have a little bit of experience, so it's going to be a different role even after one time.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Totally, yeah. Or the kid who's never trained jiu-jitsu but wrestled in high school.
Oh, I don't even deal with those. I could tell. I'm like, that guy was a wrestler.
My nightmare.
Man, we watched John. I think we haven't told the story in a long time. When we work for the government, and so we get to travel a lot to bases around the world.
Oh, cool.
And so we went to Japan for, I think it was like 3 months.
What branch of the service?
We were both of us were Navy, but we work for the Department of the Navy right now.
Were you at Yokosuka?
Yeah, we're in Yokosuka. Yep. And so on base they had some jiu-jitsu and for free, and it turned out to be some of the best jiu-jitsu we've ever learned. Yeah. It was under Black Label Jiu-Jitsu. But so John, there's this probably 18, 19-year-old kid that's just yoked out of his mind that shows up and looks at John, and this was, 3 years ago? And he's like, you want to roll? And John's like, oh, yeah, sure. And I literally watched John get mauled by a bear for 5 minutes. It was
rough 5 minutes.
John looked at me, and he's like, why don't, he's like looking at me like, I'm going to tag you in. Like, why don't you help me? Get this guy off me, man. It was funny because come to find out he was a wrestler.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He was young, he was strong, and he had a lot of energy. But, we went the whole 5 minutes. There was no submission.
And he kept getting frustrated because John was defending everything he was trying to do. And so he would just try harder and harder to get something.
Sometimes that's the greatest win is just not getting subbed, just keeping them at bay, the young bucks. So do you release the podcast as video or just as audio?
Both.
Okay, so I'm just going to hold this up. This is my dad in the late 50s when he was stationed at Yokosuka training judo at Kodokan.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was... he did a thing called explosive ordnance disposal, which you guys probably know about.
Know what that is.
Yeah. So my dad was EOD, 22 years stationed in Yokosuka, and I have the family photo album of their time there, and I'm fascinated by. One day I'm going to go back and just like retrace their steps. So
I'll tell you what, man. If there's one place that you should visit, it is Japan. I've been to Japan 3 times, twice in the Navy and then once as a civilian. And I freaking love that place. The food is amazing. The culture is amazing. It's beautiful. And then there's all kinds of things you can do when you're out there. So if you get a chance to go, I also went to the Tokyo Disneyland when I was in the Navy.
No way, that's
really
cool.
Fun. Yeah, I went into like an ice bar, like one of those like Sub-Zero ice bars where it's like ice is the bar, and then you sit on ice cubes. It was a whole lot of fun.
Well, I was thinking he reminds me of Larry. If Larry's still a purple belt out there in Yokosuka.
Oh,
but
yeah.
He loves the guitar, plays in a band.
Oh, is that right? Go Larry.
Rolling Bones.
Rolling Bones. He makes Rolling Bones skis.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a great name.
Yep.
Yeah, and he was the type of guy that would wrist lock you. Like he was, I think he was in his 50s, and he would like literally
late 50s.
Yeah, late 50s, like skinny, short guy, and you would have to, instead of protect your neck, you had to protect your wrist because he would lock him in.
I think it was Larry Kreiner.
Yeah, super funny guy, super cool guy.
Did you guys train martial arts before you did jiu-jitsu, or was jiu-jitsu the first for you?
Jiu-jitsu's the first for me.
I did it a little bit when I was 13, and it was taekwondo.
Yeah, I did a semester of wrestling my freshman year of high school. That's about it. So
a little bit of boxing in the Navy that wasn't regulated.
Was that at a bar on a Saturday night?
No, it was on the ship.
Board.
It was on board.
All right, okay. And did they have a brig on that ship?
They did, but I was not in it.
Oh. Congratulations. What is it? What is it about this thing? What is it about jiu-jitsu? Can you? What are we?
I'm still trying
here?
to figure it out, man. Like it's so crazy that one or two things happened within your first couple classes. Either you realize that you have no idea how to fight and you want to do it because, one, you want to learn how to defend yourself. 2, you realize you have no idea how to fight and you try to stay away from it as long as possible. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've seen people in both scenarios. And I feel like more people just come out with like you mentioned, it's amazing. Like, how do I do this? This person just kicked my butt. And I think it's the humbling on day one that makes you realize, like, there's something here. You know, in my opinion, I feel like there's something there within that first class, those first 2 or 3 classes, that you're like, man, I just keep getting my butt kicked, and I just don't know how to stop it. You know, and there's always that guessing game. There's always that building on tomorrow. There's always that new experience. I mean, we've all been doing it for a couple of years now, and every class is something different. You know what I mean? You can do the same technique 3-4 weeks in a row and still learn every single class every time you do it. So
100%. It's just the weirdest. It's the weirdest thing. It just, in terms of like, in a world where there's a handful of phonies floating around out there, and there's a lot
We've seen a few
posing and
I was going to say, it's the truth of it.
It's the truth of it, isn't it?
It is. It's the truth of it. That's why I like it. There ain't no fakeness. There ain't no hiding. You get to see the real person, and that's what there is.
Yeah. If someone could walk in looking like a Billy Badass, and they get on the mat for 2 minutes, and you know they're squirming and screaming.
It's forced humility. It's forced honesty, and the person who doesn't last, or the person who might last but they're not respected, is the person who makes excuses and poses and postures and tries to do this weird dance. But if you're looking for undeniable perpetual honesty, get on a jiu-jitsu mat. It's mind-boggling to me.
You mentioned that, you know, the people making excuses. Have you ever ran into one of those people, right, where whether they're younger than you, higher belt than you, or something, right, after rolling with them, they've kind of been confrontational with you afterwards? Like, have you ever had that happen where they're like, oh yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't trying really hard. It's like okay, you can make the excuse of I wasn't trying really. Oh yeah, well, I mean, I've never done this before. You have years of experience on me. It's like, look, we were all there.
I probably have not only experienced that, but I'm sure I've done a lot of that. Like, I definitely went through the phase. I definitely went through the phase when I was a 4-stripe white belt and probably half of my blue belt, where right before I was going to get tapped by someone that I didn't want to get tapped by, I'd be like, move your thumb a little bit. Let's just hit pause. You know? And like, it turns into a teaching role just before I'm going to get my ass kicked, you know?
Yeah.
And I try to not, I don't do that anymore. But yeah, I've definitely can smell that from a mile away. And I definitely have done most of that. Look, there's a very high probability that guys from my academy and girls from my academy will listen to your podcast. And if I were to deny that I didn't fall into that category, there are 2 things that I have to own. I've been through every phase of being the obnoxious person on the mat, and I'm definitely the person that, you know, people have had to say, could you please go get a frigging breath mint?
Oh, man.
Yeah, I've definitely been that guy. So I definitely have plenty of Listerine strips and gum and breath spray in my bag. So that hopefully won't happen again.
Smelly breath isn't as bad as smelly balls, right, John?
That's true.
So let's go.
My balls are clean.
Well, that's good, because let me tell you, a sweaty sack summer is approaching, and time to prioritize your comfort on your crotch. That's why the kings of crotch comfort, Manscaped, have spent 2 years designing the most comfortable boxer briefs out there.
I've had the honor of testing these new boxers, and I can say it's the softest fabric of any underwear. So breathable that it's like the gills for your groin. They even trademarked the
soft
jewel
as your
pouch.
balls?
I mean, I don't know. Are they, Travis? No. They even trademarked the jewel pouch, so you know it's serious. I think it's time you invest in your family jewels. So let's let your bulge breathe and get 20% off plus free shipping by using the code
ETP20
at manscaped.com.
Let's say you're on a date and your partner catches that Manscaped on your waistband of your underwear. It's almost a guarantee to raise some eyebrows and act like a billboard of the highway of Pleasure Town.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Can I retroactively turn down the invitation to be on this podcast?
No, it's too late. It's too late. What do you think about the boxers there, Travis?
I'll tell you right now, no BS, I really do enjoy them. The one fault, though, John, on the boxers, and it might steer some people away from them.
But let's give an honest
opinion. Feel great, comfort. They're probably my favorite boxers I own, except for
they don't have a fly.
They don't, and I don't know why they don't have a fly. I thought that was. I mean, to be honest, I don't use flies anyways. When I use the bathroom, I just pull my drawers down anyways, so it doesn't bother me.
You're the guy that gets butt naked when he goes in the bathroom.
Funny story.
Oh
no.
Lord.
No, but yeah, they feel great, and that's probably because the microfiber is buttery soft and breathable, keeping your cucumber cool. Jesus Christ, what am I
Please
reading?
don't use the term buttery when you're talking about your ball.
Was it buttery and the cucumber combination?
Are you
Walk,
looking for...
run, and strut. The moisture-wicking boxers breathe without breaking a sweat, man. John, how do you like them?
You know, I like everything about them. They are comfortable. I do like the elastic waistband. All I need, and maybe I think I have the older pair because I believe the new pair has.
Yeah,
a fly.
they just released the Boxer 2.0s at home. If you guys are looking to buy them, so just giving you a heads up. They have made them better. So if you guys are interested, they are out there now. So
just make sure you use our code ETP20.
That's right. Get 20% off and free shipping with code ETP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with code ETP20 at manscaped.com. Once the Boxer 2.0s touch your sack, you'll never go back. Thanks, Manscaped.
Hashtag buttery balls.
Hashtag buttery cool, or what was it? Buttery soft and breathable cucumber cool. Like, Jesus, man, what am I?
I don't even know if it's legal
you
to
think
say.
you like butter on your corn on the cob? Imagine butter on your balls. Try Manscaped 2.0.
There you go. I like it.
Are you going to have to re-record all of that because of my interjections?
No.
We're gonna leave it there.
It has to be organic, and if it sounds like it's fake, no one's going to use our code anyways. So
yeah,
it is fun though. But have you ever tapped to someone's BO before?
Okay. Well, oh man.
Or has someone tapped to your BO before?
No, I don't even like thinking about this. And I'm going to tell this story, and I got to just try to be as vague as possible. But we had
don't hurt any feelings, please.
We don't have anybody in our school named
Cucumber.
Nick. We don't have any named Nick, so I'm going to say we used to call this guy Stinky Nick behind his back, and Stinky Nick was really, really stinky. Really stinky and large and stinky and awful. And rolling it with him was tricky enough. And one night, Stinky Nick and I were rolling. My balls were particularly buttery this evening. And he got into mount, and one extremely large, hot, awful ball of sweat fell into my mouth. And it became a multi-sensory thing, and I faked a leg cramp, and I had to get the hell out of
Is it because you were having an orgasm? That sounds amazing.
Yes. I said I have to get up. I have a cramp.
I have fed several submissions before from BO alone.
Oh my gosh, it's the worst. Please use a mint. Please wash your balls. Please wear Manscaped 2.0 boxer shorts. Please do whatever you can possibly do. Look, if you are the person at your academy who can't identify the stinky person,
that's you.
It is you.
That's right.
You have to wash your asshole. I'm sorry.
Truth.
You have
Truth.
to.
This episode's really going down the hole.
We had
right
nicknames
now.
for some of our people. We had Mustard Ass. We called one guy Mustard Ass. Like, we had names for him, and if they're pairing up partners and nobody picks you for the open rolling or whatever, that's probably why.
Yeah, if people avoid eye contact and they're like I'm gonna do the solo drills.
Are any of your guys at your school wearing the rash guard that says "Follow me on OnlyFans"?
Yeah, we have one.
We have a guy.
one. He listens to the show too.
We have a guy at our school who he's the best guy. Matt Christensen. He's going to compete in his first tournament next weekend, and he's going to destroy. But when he wears his OnlyFans rash guard on no gi day, he starts the roll. You slap bump, and he says, "I want to maintain eye contact with you during this entire roll."
Done.
And he's being funny. He's got a demented sense of humor, but.
I like it.
How many guys? Go ahead. Nobody got.
I was going to say, so what do you, speaking of like thinking about how smelly a person is, like what do you think about when you're actually sparring? And at what point in your journey do you feel like you kind of just picked up that second nature of reacting? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because definitely when you first start, you're thinking most of the time, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do?
Yeah, it depends on who I'm rolling with. If I'm rolling with somebody at my level or above, I am usually thinking about what I'm working on, and my goal is to get to the position that I am working on. So right now I'm working half guard bottom. And so regardless of where we start or how it goes, I am working with people my level or above to get to half guard bottom to work what I'm working on. And then if I'm working with somebody who is newer, I try to be a very, very generous role with newer people. So, and I think just in general, like I said, I'm not particularly athletic. My knees hurt a lot. My back hurts a lot, and I'm doing fine. I love it, and I'm in, and I'm getting better all the time. But I actually really like giving a position, like just offering up a position. I am happy to give you side control. I'm happy to give you mount. I'm happy to give you my back, and then to fight from there. I think that's actually a lot of my game. Like if somebody mounts me and they go for a classic armbar, I like the work of reversing that and coming up on top. So I'm thinking about that a lot. I mentioned I did this private a couple of weeks ago with this 4-stripe, and he was talking about going over the details as we were working the half guard bottom, really developing the sensitivity where you can feel where your training partner's weight is going, and getting sensitive enough to kind of feel that, so that if I'm in half guard bottom, for example, and you are moving heavy to my left, my right foot is coming out and I'm working to get close guard. But if you're going to my right, I'm going to shoot, and I'm going to shoot for an underhook and try to come up and wrestle up from that position. So get in the position that I'm working on, be generous in the roll, and then really try to be as sensitively connected to the subtle movements of my training partners as possible. Because as a big guy, I'm 6 feet tall and 227 pounds. So I'm not going to have it with speed and agility. I have to have it with sensitivity and to kind of know what's coming. If I see that somebody's foot is lined up with my knee, I know what's going to happen there. And so I want to be ready for it, and I want to use their movements to my advantage. And then there are some things. I'll just say one other thing about this is, do you guys work rolling Kimuras or diving Kimuras at all?
We have.
Yeah, once or twice.
So we did a series. Our coach Frizzy has Mike Frizzy, awesome jits teacher, brown belt. He has taught a series on rolling Kimuras 2 times. And the first time I couldn't get it at all. A year and a half later, I got it and understood it and could execute it while drilling. And then a few weeks ago, I saw it and I went for it and I landed it.
Oh, nice.
So excited. And he was watching. And I was so stoked. And so sometimes it's that as well. So if I'm not being thoughtful and something presents itself, I'll surprise myself by going for it.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that too, because we did some Berimbolo stuff a couple weeks ago, and I'm 5'8", 200 pounds, 205. So I'm a little bit of a stockier guy. And I was at first class. I was like, man, there's no way I'm going to do Barambolos. There's no way my body's made for a Barambolo, right? By the end of the second week, I was Baramboloing, right? And I've hit it a couple times live in a roll since then. And it's the same thing. Like, it happens and I'm on their back. And in my head, I'm like, yeah!
It's so
satisfying.
I mean? It's so
but on the
satisfying.
outside, I was like, man, that was cool. Like, I can't believe it.
Yeah. It's like meeting somebody that you're like being like that you're a fanboy for and like trying to play it cool and trying to keep it together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny when those things happen because I remember probably the first big moment of a success that I remember till this day was not tapping during a roll against Cody, who was a purple belt at the time, right? This was a couple of years ago. And I got up, and I probably over celebrated, and he probably didn't tap me on purpose. But I got up, and I felt like I was like, I didn't freaking get tapped that roll. You know what I mean? Little did I know he was probably working on something that, wasn't his A game or something like that, or he was, texting his wife while he was rolling with me. But I didn't tap. That's what
I got a call a couple months ago after class from somebody, and they were like, Jim, call me back. It's important. So I call him back, and he goes, I passed Liam's guard.
Yeah.
Side control. And Liam is our black belt. And this was a guy who was like a 3-stripe white belt at the time. And I was like, okay, I'm going to help you out with something. I don't want to burst your bubble, but you did not pass his guard. He goes, I was afraid you were going to say that. I'm like, yeah. There's no world in which anything has happened between you and Liam that he didn't allow to happen.
Yeah.
And that kind of gets into like, I don't want to be a gloater. I definitely do it probably inside. If I get a good moment, I'm super, like when I landed that rolling Kimura, I was super psyched, but definitely not going, yes.
Yeah. So, John, you got anything else, man? I know you got a busy schedule. You got to head out.
No, not really. I was going to ask, man, how are your singles and doubles?
They are borderline non-existent. We don't do a ton of takedowns until recently. And I'm going to try to describe this to you, and I hope it will make sense. So singles are okay. We're working more takedowns these days. They're okay. I don't typically think to go for them. I don't really know what the jiu-jitsu community's problem is with pulling guard, but I'm a guard puller. Are you guys? Oh, look at the look on your face. You look so sad and disappointed.
I like pulling guard too. The reason I ask about the singles and doubles is I have so much trouble with them. I don't know if that's a wrestling thing or what.
Yeah.
I've tried to pull guard, but every single time it happens, I kind of just hand the person my man card and then just continue the roll, and then hopefully I earn it back by the end of it.
I don't know what the name is for this, but what we're doing right now, if you can imagine this, you're standing up. My right hand has the collar tie. My left hand gets I go 45 degrees off, and I get an overhook onto the shoulder. So I'm holding the head and the shoulder down. Mm-hmm. My training partner pops up. I go to my knee and I go for the single, driving up. If I can find a video for you guys to share, because I know it's a podcast and it's like super confusing. So I'm finding that version of a single leg actually works. We have a guy in our school who's an FBI agent who actually used something similar to it to arrest somebody a couple weeks ago. So yeah,
NBD.
They're tough. What's that?
I said no big deal. MBD, FBI agent taking someone down with some jiu-jitsu stuff.
I know, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty great. Yeah.
John, you got anything else though, man?
No.
All right. Hey, Jim, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on the show today. It sounds like my son is about to have a fist fight with my wife in the house. So
great to be with you guys. Stoked to be asked to be on this podcast. Wicked fun. You guys are great.
I had a blast, man. If we had more time, I'm sure we could go on for freaking hours. This could be literally a 2-3 hour podcast, I feel like. So
awesome.
But if you had one piece of advice for a brand new white belt, what would it be?
Oh God, bless America. If I had one piece of advice, it would be this. don't try to remember anything, and don't pretend like you know anything. Think of this as learning a language. If you were trying to learn French, you would not expect to be fluent in French after a couple months of doing it. You have to allow jiu-jitsu to happen to you. And if you keep doing it, you will become fluent. And there's just no way to win at jiu-jitsu before you know jiu-jitsu. And if you're brand new, you just don't know it. And it's humbling. So stay with it and you will learn it.
Great piece of advice. I'm going to have to start using that analogy of learning a language. I actually really like that.
Thanks. Yeah.
So, hey, but Jim, if people want to follow you, why don't you go ahead and throw all that stuff out there?
You can go to @MyWhiteBelt on Instagram, or you can visit MyWhiteBelt.com. The podcast is called My White Belt, and it's everywhere, wherever you listen to fine podcasts such as this one. So again, you guys, like instantly kindred spirits with you guys. Like this was like the easiest conversation.
yeah, absolutely. That's what I was saying. Like we have questions that we have just in case.
Yeah.
Some people need them more than others, but this was supremely organic, and I had a blast, Jim. Man, thank you so much for coming on the show, bro.
You bet. My absolute pleasure.
John?
I wanted to say your podcast sounds great. The audio was fantastic when I listened to it today at work.
Thanks,
so
man.
you guys should go check it out. It's really good.
Yeah, definitely. I've listened to, I think, like 3 or 4 episodes of it. So usually I listen to it on the car ride when I'm like taking my kid to school. So,
cool.
But hey, if you guys want to follow Jim, that's everything. My White Belt everywhere. Be sure to follow us. Elbows Tight on YouTube. elbowstight.com, Elbows Tight Pod. Yep, that's right. It's an extremely important concept to remember. So it's easy to remember if you want to find us everywhere. It's Elbows Tight everywhere. So thank you guys so much for listening at home and watching. And remember, no oil checks here.
Oos.
That's right, guys. Thank you. Peace.
#buttery balls.